Hello everyone, I am Tishadash, lecturer at the Department of CSE Brack University. So today we are going to learn about object-oriented programming. So in object-oriented programming, or we simply say it as OOP, we will learn about objects and classes. Now in Python, we see that it supports different kinds of data types. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, this is an integer. 3.14159, this is a floating point number. Hello, this is a string. 15711 1113, this is a list, and this is a dictionary. So we know these data types. So how and now we know that there are different kinds of data types, but what we do not know is that each one of these are object. So let's look at the code. So if we try to find out the type, print type of 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I run this, you will find that this is a class written that this is a class int. So this is literally an object of the integer class. So if we change it a little bit, 1, 2, 3, 4, and make it a string, and if you run it, you will find that this is an instance, or we call this is an object of the string class. So everything we make in our Python code, those will be obviously an instance or an object of a class. So what we can understand from here, that every object has a type. So each of these is an object, and every object has a type. So we know that the type of this 1, 2, 3, 4, this is an integer type of data, and this is also an object. And there will be internal representation that can be primitive or composite. So primitive data type is in integer, floating point, or something like this, where we do not use any kind of composite or composite representation. And composite representation means something like lists, tuples, or dictionaries, etc. So, and there will be a set of procedures for interaction with the object. So within a class, we will have data representation, internal data representation, and a set of procedures. And each of the objects of that class obviously has a type. So an object is an instance of a type. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is an instance of an int, or we can say integer class. So hello is an integer, or instance of a string, or we can say that instance of the class string. Okay. Now what we have understood from here, that everything in Python is an object and obviously has a type. So you can create new objects, manipulate objects, and destroy objects. So we will see how to create and manipulate objects and create classes also, but we already know about how to destroy objects. So we know that the term del, and this is the way to destroy objects, and we have learned this in the list or dictionary, and in any of those lectures you will find the del operation. Now we have already told that here an internal data representation we will have. So the object will have an internal data representation. So now say that we have a list which contains 1, 2, 3, 4, and so how does the list contains contain these elements. So here is the data representation, which in which we find that the first element here, and there is a pointer to the second element, and there is a pointer to the third element, and so we get, this is called a linked list. You will write this linked list yourself in the course CSE 220, and then we will understand, but we are here just looking at the data representation. So in a list, the elements are simply represented by a linked list. So here is the representation. For example, we are just talking about the lists now. So how to manipulate lists? We know many kinds of built-in functions: length, mean, max, del, append, extend, count, index. So where are these methods written? They are written in the class of lists, which is built in for us, or somebody has already written the class for us, and we are just using the class and creating objects of lists and manipulating the lists by using their written code or their written methods and attributes. Okay. So there are some advantages of OOP. These bundle data into packages. So when we will look into an example, we will find out that how um, we are bundling data into packages. For example, if you are writing a class for a student and they have different properties, so each student will have the property, and so if I create an object of a student class and name it as Rafi, and he will have some properties such as his student ID, his address, and his CGPA. And again, if we create another object of the class student there and name it as Ria, then she will also have the same properties, um, such as student ID and her address and so on, which Rafi also has. So we will package all the data we need for one student, or all the properties we need for a student, into bundles. Okay. So and the next advantage is that we can do this in a divide and conquer method, and so build small classes and test those, instead of writing a bigger and a large huge code and then testing it. And this helps us to easily find out bugs, and we also can reuse the codes. Now there are two things we need to remember, that we have to first create a class. When we want to create a new class for ourselves, then we have to first create a class and then use an instance. But the classes we already have seen, that lists or integer or floating point, these are classes that are built in. So the creating part has been done, and now we are just using. But if we want to create a class, we can also do that. So for creating a class, we have to define the class name, the class attributes, and for example, and also we have to write the methods. For example, someone wrote code to implement a list class. So now we are just using the list class. So for using the list using any class, we have to create instances of objects. So when we create a list, we are simply creating a new object of list class, and we can also do various operations on the instances. So if we want to do some operations, so let us say we are talking about this list. So this is the list. Now by this line we are creating an object of list. Now we want to find out the length. So length of list 1. So we are using the method already written by the developers, and we are just using the methods. This length method is written inside the class of list. So we are now just using the method. So the length of the method, length of the list 1 is 5. So this is how we build an object of a built-in list. Built-in, yes, so built-in class or list, and we can also manipulate. And there are many other methods that we can use about lists. So now these are all lists and dictionaries and other things, or integer and floats. These are all built in, and we are just using the class to build new instances, but we are not creating any classes. So next we will create some classes for ourselves, and then we will find, or then we will use our classes to build objects. So let us look at this one. So the class is literally a blueprint, and the objects are instances. For example, this is the blueprint of a house, and here we can find that this is the house plan, and this is the living room, here is the bedroom. And various developers or various house builders can build instances. So using the same blueprint, they are creating three different instances or three different objects. So uh, all of them have the same blueprint as the class, but there are three different instances. So now we are going to talk about, or we will write a class, our new class, which is called a taxi, and there will be some data or attributes and some behavior or methods. So the data we need here is the driver's name, is the taxi on duty, the number of passengers, and the cities where the taxi goes. And the behavior is pick up passenger. So if we pick up passenger, the number of passenger will increase. If we drop off passenger, the number of passenger will decrease. Set driver name and get driver name. So through setting driver name, we will tell that who is the driver of the taxi, and getting driver name, we are asking about the driver, that what is your name. Okay. So the driver name should be a string. On duty can be a boolean, and that it is on duty. If it is on duty, it will be true, and if it is on not on duty, then it will be false. And the number of passengers will be integer, and the cities will be list, because a taxi can go to many cities. Okay. So and the methods here are pick up passenger. So pick up passenger, and this will return integer because it will add 1 to the number of passenger. Drop off passenger, it will subtract 1 from the passenger. Set driver's name, so we have to set a driver name, new driver's name. So we will provide a string here in the argument, and get driver's name. So we will get driver name, so we do not need any argument, but we will get a string. So let us write the code now. So we will have a class named taxi. So let's just talk about the variables, and we will talk about the methods in the next class. So the variables are driver name. Of course, we set this to Moti. So on duty equals to false. Now num passengers equals to, let's say there are 4 passengers, and cities. So let's say that our taxi only goes to Dhaka and Pune. So now we have written our class. Now we want to create an object. So the type will be taxi, and so we create an object taxi1 equals to taxi. Okay, this is how we create an object. So now let's print the type of taxi1. So see that we can ignore this for now. So this is that the taxi1 is an instance of the class taxi, or the type is taxi. Okay, so now we want to simply find out the cities where the taxi can go. So cities, so Dhaka and Kumilla. So taxi, we have to put this full stop to find out or to get the attributes of this particular object. So we can also write here the driver name. So we will get Moti. Okay. So now we can also create another instance. Now print the driver's name. Now we will see that both of the driver's name is Moti. Okay, so this is really, so what we can see that how many objects we create, it doesn't matter, all of those will have the driver name Moti, all of those will have on duty equals to false, and all these properties will be similar to all of those objects. So we call these variables class variables, which are the same for all instances. So we can also get these variables by using the class name and not using the instance. So if we write taxi.driver name, we are just pointing to this variable driver name. And so we will also have different type of variables which are called instance variables. We will look into the matter in the next lecture, but these are called class variables, which are same for all of the objects we are creating. And so if we want to differentiate one object from another, so then we will have to write some different kind of variables. Those are called instance variables.